So TeamAIDAsha started 17 years ago, and over the years, it's had 50 plus alumni runners as volunteers, continuing the program. And about 400 people have, I also have to mention that we will be recording this. If anyone is uncomfortable, just let us know. But yeah, over 400 runners have been completed the program. Most of them have been first-time runners, and they've done their first ever full and half marathons with this program. And close to $1 million has been fundraised over the years. Right now, it's like 935K. So maybe this year we'll be able to push past that 1 million benchmark. And as mentioned, all the funds go to support these important grassroots development and educational projects in India. And it's one of the biggest fundraising programs for both AID and ASHA for education. Last year, unfortunately, we couldn't do TeamAIDAsha because of COVID. So it's great that this year, whatever shape or form we're doing virtually, we're able to bring this fundraising program back to those organizations. So who can join TeamAIDAsha? Anyone, like as mentioned before, whether you have prior experience running or if you're a couch potato or just hate running, like this will help you enjoy it because you're able to meet a lot of new friends. You have accountability for this long-term goal. And also you're running for a cause, which is very motivational. So what training will look like this season is we're going to have our first run on May 1st. And it's starting off virtual. As CDC guidelines come in, we will see about moving in person. But so far, these first couple of months, especially, they're going to be virtual. We'll start with a brief info session. You log on Zoom, and then we'll give you information about how to do your warm-up stretches. And it will be 10 a.m. on Saturday morning. And after the warm-up stretch, you'll go out in your neighborhood, go for your run. It will help with accountability and just getting together and meeting the team. And then, so why should you register with Team AID, or what are the benefits? First, the free part for everyone is the meetup group membership. We have a Signal group, and we have a bunch of training reference materials. After you register, pay the registration fee. We have a bunch of different clinics that help you along the way. I'll mention more of those later in other slides. But first, please join our meetup group. The link will be set in the chat below. I think most of you might have joined. That's how you got into this info session meeting. So let's talk more about the benefits for registered runners. We have a training plan, and it's very flexible depending on whether you're an experienced runner or not. Like, we have various plans. And this year we'll look more virtual as our training runs at the beginning, as mentioned. We have a private Strava club, and this way you can get personal advice from coaching, and you can stay motivated by seeing the progress of your fellow teammates. In the past, we've had water support, depending on if we transition into in-person runs later on in the season. We might have these, but of course, safety is utmost important to us, so we'll have to collectively assess if that is a risk or we want to take. There's a shoe clinic. Jonathan will be going over the different types of shoes that are helpful for you. And then after, we have a relationship with Marathon Sports Company where they give discounts to teams that are running for charitable organizations. And they will give you a personal individualized shoe fitting. We'll do a stretching clinic for both injury prevention, pre-runs, post-runs, as well as core strengthening. And we'll also be posting later videos on how to do these stretches. We'll have a nutritionist talk to us, especially with these long distance runs. It's very important what type of fuel and hydration you're doing. Different types of workouts like hill workouts, track workouts, whether you're starting from scratch or you're experienced with these will help you. And also part of our organization, as mentioned before, is the fundraising aspect. And so we teach you the skills that will help you accomplish the fundraising goals that we set. Depending on also this the pandemic and CDC guidelines, social events in person will have to be assessed, but we might have some virtual social events. I know a lot of you probably have been doing various virtual events. So totally open to ideas. If you have any, please reach out. Yeah, so we have a bunch of volunteers in the past supporting the team. So in this year, what the season looks like, because in the past we've done half marathon or marathon, but with masks and with limited in-person support, we decided to do a series of races and get more new runners involved. And so what we're looking at is a 5K early in the summer, which is about 3 miles, then a 10K late in the summer, probably virtual, which is about 6 miles. And then if people's goals are either 10K, they can do another one in the fall. If your goal is a half marathon, that is what we're aiming for in the fall. Hopefully in-person races tend to open up more later throughout with this pandemic. So we'll be keeping an eye out on those. Some possible ones we were thinking about were the Cape Cod one, Plymouth Rock. But yeah, we're aiming for late fall when the weather is cooler for the longest race. And you can decide whether you want to run a 10K and then later on decide to switch to a half marathon. We have a secure online fundraising page. That's easy for collecting the donations, and it's been working well for these past many years. So now I'm going to talk about the fundraising targets. It's basically $100 per mile. So if your longest goal was to run a 10K, we ask you to fundraise $600. If your longest goal was a half marathon, it's $1,300. If at first you run the 10K, accomplish it, and you're like, oh, now I'm ready to run a half, we'll just ask you to raise the rest of that money. If you're a student or a postdoc, there's a discount of only having to raise $800. And if you're a past alumni runner and you're going to run a half marathon, it would be $1,000. So there's several discounts. You could do a referral discount where you get one of your friends to register. We'll take $100 off your target. Or if you are registered as a family member, 2 or more runners of the same family, we'll take 25% off of your target. But if you follow the fundraising goals or the fundraising guidelines from the fundraising clinic, it's pretty easy to get to raise to your goals. So running expenses, we have a registration fee of $75, but we'll talk about the different discounts you can get for those if you register early for the early bird special. Other fees will be you have to pay for the race you register out of pocket unless you're running it on your own. Those tend to be like $25 to $75 per race. More information once we decide which race we're doing will be sent to you. You have to buy 1 pair of shoes, and then if you're traveling, but probably the races we're picking are more local, you'd have to pay for those expenses. So early bird registration is, if you register by May 8th, it will just be $25. If you register by May 15th, $50, or if you register by May 29th, it'll be $75. And also these registration fees go into your total fundraising goal. I see a question that says, if you fail to raise their fundraising goal, do you pay for the difference out of pocket? Yeah, but most likely you will probably be able to make that fundraising goal if you follow our guidelines. So for first run, if you join the meetup, you'll get these notifications. But as mentioned, it's Saturday, May 1st at 10 a.m. And it'll be very flexible. Some people have been running, some people haven't. So you choose like 2, 3, 4 miles, and you can do a run, walk, whatever pace you're able to manage. And we'll have coaching assistance for that. So join for that one. Here's a timeline. As mentioned, we're thinking about like a 5K earlier in the summer, 10K early fall, and then a half marathon or another 10K later fall. And the shoe clinics, nutrition clinics, stretching clinics will all be earlier in the season. That way you get the necessary equipment and skills you need to progress throughout the season. Here are some of our previous coaches, assistants, and like the types of races they've run. You see Dr. Sunday ran 22 full. We have Jumby, who's on our alumni panelist. He ran a bunch. Yeah. And I'm going to pass it off to Jonathan. He has run 20 marathons under his belt, 40 years of running experience, and he's our coach. All right.
Thank you very much, Lakshmi. This will stop the other screen sharing. Yes, welcome to Zoomland. Does this look okay to everybody? This double page view or not?
Um,
Feed,
Yeah, it
feedback?
looks good.
That looks good? Okay.
Yeah, we can see pretty well.
Now if I can only figure out how to, oh, there we go. Okay, great. So thank you. I think that we have maybe half a dozen or a few more people who have not run with the group. Everybody else that you see on this call here is an alum, and the fact that everybody's back and committed and recommitted, I think, speaks to what a great group this is, and a great group to be part of, and also the multiple motivations that there are to take part. I just have a couple of things I wanted to say up front. Many people that I know have been calling the last year a grand pause. It feels like so many things have been put on hold in our lives. Seeing loved ones, bucket list travel, all of those things. While we're all figuring out how this pandemic has landed for us individually and personally, it's easy to forget that it's also meant a pause in things like the fundraising efforts that we have been doing. And this, as you saw in an earlier slide, we've raised close to $1 million to go for good causes and good works around the world. And there were lots of reasons to consider whether or not we should restart this, but one of the things that I find especially moving is the idea that we can continue to follow up and follow through and provide assistance where it's most needed. And so you could almost convince me to give money without running, but running is cool too. So anyway. Also, just as sort of a general note, we are approaching this with an abundance of caution. We certainly don't want to be the vector or be responsible for anybody getting sick. And so we want to do our best. As Lakshmi said earlier, the CDC provides guidelines that are good to adhere to. I think many of us have actually been more cautious even than certainly what they've done in some states around the US, and maybe even more than the CDC. Things are starting to look better. I just got my second vaccination last week. I'm hoping everybody sees that on the near horizon, unless it's Johnson & Johnson, in which case you only have to go through that once. It was actually quite easy. Anyway, so fingers crossed, there are brighter times. The science seems that running outside seems to suggest that it's incredibly safe, and we'll be working towards a new normal. So anyway, let's see. So how, come on now. Here we go. So in past years, we've had an option to run a marathon. It seemed imprudent to include a marathon in our formal training program this year. If there's anybody on this call who intends to or wants to run a marathon, I'm sure that we can work on that together. But I think for the purposes of our training season, given the uncertainty, that it makes a lot more sense for us to aim for a half marathon as our terminal race of the year. The cool thing about half marathons is, and I mean this sincerely, everybody can get to the point where they can complete a half marathon at the end of 6 months. There may be edge cases and extreme cases where that's not the case, so I have to say that with some consideration. But 13.1 miles over the course of up to 4 hours is something that, with some walking, with some starts and stops, I really believe that everybody can achieve that as a goal. And again, this kind of repeats some of the things that Lakshmi pointed to earlier, but there are multiple benefits that you get from setting a goal like this and achieving it. And there are goals, and I actually think all of these are selfish, whether it's improving your fitness, improving your self-image and your sort of standing in your social group. But even your ability to help others and inspire others, I believe, is selfish, because if that's something you want to do, then that's something that's about your desire to do good in the world. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. All right. So I'm going to try to sort of go through this quickly, and then happy to take questions about anything that anybody has, even alum runners. I don't know. Feel free to ask questions. The keys to the training program are really, I think, boil down to, or can be broken down to, a few basic ideas. One is that there's a gradual buildup. If you give yourself enough time to work up to this goal, it's achievable. You can do it safely, and you can come away from it feeling relatively whole. Being consistent throughout the course of the training program, which is kind of connected to the idea of gradually building up and building up your mileage, building up the stress on your body, is important. The accountability of the group. And actually, when I ran my first marathon, I ran it out of a book by myself, and I would not recommend it to anyone. It was a very lonely endeavor. It was kind of like being in a pandemic and not having a partner around. You just spend so much time in your own head. You don't want to go through that all the time. So having other people to be accountable to, I think, is really meaningful. And the last thing that I'll say is running pace doesn't matter. And I mean that really and truly. This is one of the wonderful things about running is it's a very individual sport. You can really do it according to your own desire and designs. Doesn't take a lot of equipment. At any rate, on the right-hand side, you can see, hopefully my video isn't flipped and it's not backwards. You can see some of the details. I'm not going to read through all of this, but these are sort of some of the highlights or high notes of the training program itself. In terms of time sink, I think that especially in the summer months when we have more daylight over the course of the day, that training for something like this does not have to dominate your life. There may be a couple of events during the course of the week that require a little bit more time or a little bit more consistency. One of them being the long run, which is probably the hardest effort of the week that you undertake each week. Initially, for those who are newbies to running, that could be a matter of going out for 20 or 30 minutes, and that's really the extent of it. By the time you're in the middle of the training program or 2/3 of the way through, you might be spending a couple of hours out on your feet once a week. And then the rest of the runs during the week are kind of at whatever time suits you. Of course, as we start virtually, you could even do the long run at whatever time suits you. But again, if you want to realize the benefit of having the accountability, having the sessions that we'll do at the beginning to kind of get everybody ready to do their stretches and know what the plan is for the day, then doing it on Saturdays at the same time as everybody else makes the most sense. These are just sort of some jokey, funny things that we've sort of talk about year after year, but one of the things I really enjoy about doing something like this is that you get to ask questions that seem very almost whimsical on the surface of it, such as, how do I breathe? But in the context of running, you can understand why that's actually a serious and real question. And some people wonder, should I breathe through my nose? Should I breathe through my mouth? Should I breathe every 2 strides or 3 strides? Anyway, it's kind of interesting the things that you think about, especially while you're running. How many steps per minute is optimal, et cetera, et cetera. How many steps do I take during a half marathon? I know the answer to all those questions, but I'm not going to tell you now. And then the other question is, do you think I could win the Boston Marathon? And of course the answer is yes. But you probably have to be sleeping and have that dream in order to achieve that goal. Support, logistics. You know, on the screen before I came up, you saw a grouping of a whole bunch of alum runners who are really a great source of community spirit, perspective, knowledge, encouragement. And so there are lots of people to ask questions of, whether it's about my left knee hurts a little bit, what do you think I should do, to, how did you feel when you did your first marathon? And you'll hear from some of those alum runners in a little bit. I'm going to just keep moving here so we don't spend too much time on each one of these. On the right, you see a comment about the peak of the training. You can expect to spend between 2 to 4 hours per week in your half marathon training. And I think that's probably the 4 hours is really on the high side. for a half marathon program. Okay. So just to give a little bit of detail, a little bit of information about what I mean when I talk about kind of a gradual build-up and why that's important. Many, every year, if you've lived in a city where there's a marathon, you probably hear about some college students who, the day before a marathon happens, decide that they're going to go out and run the marathon or run a marathon. And they do manage to do it. And you probably hear about a significant proportion of those people either ending up in a recovery clinic, not a rehab clinic, a marathon rehab clinic, or saying, I never ever want to do that again. It's not, so that is to say, could you go out tomorrow and run a half marathon? Probably. You probably could get through 13.1 miles, but you might not enjoy the experience, and you might come away feeling pretty awful. And there's some science behind why that is. It takes our bodies a little while to adapt to new stresses and stress load, and different parts of our physical systems adapt at different paces. So your cardiovascular system, if you went out and started a new running program tomorrow, it would take a couple of weeks before it stopped feeling hard, and it really takes about 3 to 6 weeks for a new stress load, for us to adapt to the new cardiovascular stress load. Your muscular system takes a little bit longer, and your skeletal system, one of the great things about running and weight-bearing exercise is that you will build bone density and bone mass as long as you do it carefully, but it can take between 3 and 6 months to fully adapt. And so these are just a few of the reasons why adding stress gradually and in a regular way makes sense. And so slides, I'll give you 5 seconds to sort of read this some more. We'll post these slides later, so you can always go back to them or ask questions about these in a little bit. And I guess that's my last slide for my presentation. So I think the plan is now to take a beat and entertain any questions that you may have right now. And this is not your last chance to ask questions today. But is there anything that I can clarify that I just said, or anything that you're curious about?
Hi, I'm Jonathan. This is Robin.
Hi, Robin.
Hi. I came in a little bit late, so I kind of lost the structure of the program. Sorry about that. But I really wanted to just find out what it entails. Is it all virtual training? I missed that part of it.
Yeah,
Sorry.
that's a good question. And if we had, we don't know 100%. We will begin with a virtual meetup on Saturday mornings where we can talk a little bit about the plan for the day. We'll be shooting some stretching and some functional strength training videos that we'll be sharing with the group. And so we'll be gathering together to kind of kick off the running event for the week. Everybody will be out running on their own. And as time goes on, as reality permits, as the pandemic permits, we will hopefully modulate into an in-person mode. I'm pretty optimistic about that, but I don't want to make any promises about it. And I mean, I will say, I've personally gone out and run with friends. We've kept a good distance. If you know somebody else that you want to, a partner or somebody that you know that you want to undertake this training with and do that with them, we're certainly not going to discourage that. Rather, I would encourage it. But we want to be very careful about the recommendations that we give about, being together in groups.
Well, I just
Okay,
like to add, sorry.
Oh,
I
I'm
just
sorry.
wanted
Is there a cost to it too? That was my last question.
Sure.
Sorry.
And actually, for those of you who are familiar with the raise your hand facility, feel free to use that in the sidebar I think it's
Okay.
in the reactions area. And I'll keep my eyes on that. So what was your follow-up question, Robin?
I just wanted to know if there was a cost to it, and also where is the location if you ever do go live?
Yes, there is a cost. There is a registration fee. It is $25 for early registration, and Lakshmi can sort of remind us of the dates. Actually, do you have that information handy right now, Lakshmi?
Yes.
Oh,
I
thank you.
do. It's $25 for the early bird registration, and that will be on May 8th. So you can have 2 runs before that, like our first run, May 1st, May 8th. Then after that, it would be $50 that next week. And then after May 29th, it's going to be the normal fee of $75.
And it, apart from covering the cost of some T-shirts, as you can see, we're all proudly wearing our T-shirts from previous years. There aren't, and all of the money that comes into the program goes to program costs, and that's true for AID and ASHA. They're remarkably efficient at making sure that the money goes to the programs. So I think it's worthwhile repeating that information in the context of that question. And there will be some other expenses. We can sort of loop back around to some of that information in a little while, Robin, if you still are curious to know more about what some of the costs might be. Like, you probably want to buy a pair of reasonably new shoes, and you'll have to register for a race and things like that.
Thank you.
Sure, my pleasure. Welcome. Let's see. So I'm seeing, should I look at the okay, are we aiming for people to train in small groups? We're fundraising on our own. So Bijou is our fundraising guru. He will certainly, and everybody who's an alum has been through the fundraising process and can give people some good perspective on what it's like to fundraise. I will have to say, this is a different climate, in this pandemic from anything that we've experienced before. So, I could imagine people being really, really happy to be able to sort of contribute as we return to normalcy. So maybe it'll be easier or maybe not. We just don't know. But in the past, there's plenty of time, and other people are usually pretty excited to see their friends doing something difficult and worthwhile like this. Let's see, our training programs align with different running experience. Yeah, so the best way to put it, I would say, is there's kind of a minimum
Could you repeat that question, please?
Sure. The question is, if someone is a regular runner with a mix of outdoor and indoor, how does the training program align? And so I'm interpreting this to mean, how do we accommodate people of different sort of experience levels? And it also kind of goes to pacing. There is kind of a baseline for time on your feet. If I were to overgeneralize it, I would say that minimally speaking, over the first few weeks, the goal would be to get out and run 2 to 3 times a week, just for starters, maybe 20 to 30 minutes each time. And if some of that ends up being some walking interspersed with running, that's also fine. Once you begin to level up, we do have some mileage targets, which I think are quite reasonable and achievable. They generally represent about a 10% increase per week. So if this week you're spending, an hour on your feet between 3 runs, you might expect to spend 70 minutes the following week and adding, 10 minutes to your longest run. So in that way, everybody's leveling up according to their own capabilities. The training program itself will indicate kind of what the baseline is to make sure that you get to the finish line, so to speak, and race day well prepared, safely. So hopefully that answers that question. Where will we be sharing the slides? Bijou, where do those end up?
Yeah, we will put it on our main TeamAIDAsha website, and I'll share the link on our meetup page.
Thank you. Agni, I see your hand is raised. And
Yeah,
pardon
hi.
me if I've mispronounced your name.
No, that's fine. Actually, I had a question, but before I ask the question, I actually wanted to thank you, Jonathan. I don't know if you know me, but I haven't had the chance to meet you in person. But you actually mastered one of my songs, the Berkeley Indian Ensemble,
Amazing.
the Majire, which released, I think, last year.
I remember that.
Yeah, so I
That
just
was beautiful.
never got a chance to thank you in person. So just wanted to
Cool.
do
It's
that.
nice to see you here. Nice to meet you. Kind of ish.
Yeah. So my question is also, I'm like kind of been on and off running since 2019, and I had gotten up to like 10K-ish. And then of course the pandemic happened and everything went to hell. And I very recently started running again. And I'm not even like, I have like an app which I follow, like a running program, which builds up to like, right now I'm building up to 5K again. So I was just wondering how, like, if I join this program, like would I just switch to that? Would I have to start from scratch, or like, how would that?
No, not at all. And I think you'll find there are a number of alum runners who have consistently run since last year or in the ensuing years. So there, there's the invitation to adapt the program. And if you're already at a point where you're doing X, I'm sure it would fit what we're doing as a group.
And one follow-up thing, I know miles are marathons and half marathons are typically measured in miles, but I still tend to think in kilometers.
Yeah.
So is
A
there a
half
way
marathon is 21 kilometers.
right? Yeah, because even when I use the app, it shows me my distance in miles, but then I go to like the Apple Health thing just so that I can see the distance in kilometers, so it makes some sense to me.
Yes, and that's not a problem. It's actually it's a funny. It brings to mind something that I'm sort of laughing at myself because I do this and I know most other runners do is that most people like to finish their run completing a round number. It's like, I'm going to run 20 minutes. If they run 19 minutes and 30 seconds, they're not happy. They have to make sure they get their 20 minutes in. So if we're all doing 4 miles together, that's not an even number of kilometers. You'd have to do 6.2K, right?
Yeah.
All right. So if you end up only doing 6K that day, it's okay. We'll figure it out.
Okay.
We'll accommodate whatever your preferred unit of measure is.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. All right. Any other questions before we carry on?
I don't have the raise hand feature as a co-host, but I also wanted to address Robin's question about maybe doing in-person pods. After a first couple of virtual runs, we can also make a Google Docs about where people are located and what paths they tend to run. And you can kind of find maybe people who are nearby you if you want to buddy up. But we're going to leave that probably more to the members until we decide that, yeah, collectively people are vaccinated and we want to do in person. But that will be a good resource later to see your teammates.
Excellent. Agni, is that a vestigial hand or is that a new hand?
I think it's vestigial. I don't know how to get it down.
I think you just click the same thing, it will unraise, or lower hand.
Got it.
All right. Well, I'll remain on the call, so if anything else comes up that I can help address, I'll be here, and otherwise, let's carry on.
So I
Mohit,
think I'm up next.
yes,
Yeah,
go ahead,
yeah.
Mohit.
So hi everyone. Thanks for joining in for the info session. So now I'll be talking about like what has been the experience of all the alum runners. So in the alumni panel, we have Lakshmi, Jambi, Manisha, and Wyner, and myself being another alum runner. So we'll share our experiences, and that will help you in probably like seeing like how the program proceeds, and you can always ask questions to us. So just giving a brief introduction about myself. So I joined TeamAIDAsha program in 2019, and like before joining the program, I was like, okay, I am like not like a regular runner, but I can do a half. So I just saw like they train you for either half or a full marathon. So I said, okay, I'll do a half, and just proceeded with the program. But then the whole schedule is like the whole structure of the training is, it became like towards the end of July, it became very clear to me, like I am much more than capable of doing a half. I can actually do a full. And it's not like I was suffering throughout the program. It was like very comfortable. And towards when I finished the marathon, it was like a really nice experience without any injuries. So I would say, like, if you just keep following the structure of the program, then I think you will definitely enjoy it. And then the other thing, I was worried about the fundraising, but then fundraising was also, like, with all the help from the alumni and from all the people who were there in the group, it was like super easy, and each one of us was actually able to raise more than whatever target that we had. So I would say it's a nice program, and I think all the other alumni will also talk about their experiences, and if you have any questions to the alumni, then you can ask us. So I think let's start with Lakshmi.
Hi, thank you, Mohit. So I was part of this club called AIDAsha for Education in college, and then I found out my aunt was running with TeamAIDAsha in Boston, and I thought she'd never run before, and she did her first half marathon, and I thought that was really cool. I was not much of a interested in running because I usually love playing sports, so I just thought it would be more boring, but I was like, oh, it's for a good cause. And actually, I found out like I really enjoyed it. I was thinking about only doing a half, but then the program builds you up in a way that it's like, oh, every week it's like kind of the same mental toughness you need. And so I went for a full, and it was really great with the accountability, running with the teammates, having those shoe clinics, water clinics, or like water sessions, everything. It was very helpful. I don't know if I would have done it on my own, but yeah. Should I pass it off to Manisha?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Manisha, and I have a rather long history with the TeamAIDAsha program. So I ran a full marathon with TeamAIDAsha in 2004. That's when our AIDAsha programs got together. And then since then, I've also run 2 half marathons and then also ran in the full marathon program in 2019 that both Mohit and Lakshmi ran in as well. So I have been a never runner, so did not run before I joined the program. And as Jonathan explained, it was a steady training without, getting huffing and puffing. With a few yards of running, I was able to build up. So, the first year was pushed myself to do the full marathon, and then continued to run short distances, and then came back to do 2 half marathons and then a full one. So a program that really is, adapted to beginner runners. Running with with other people and in a group was, really sort of, kept you accountable, and really is the key. So a good camaraderie with everybody in the group. So it was a really good experience. And I'll pass it on to Jambi.
Oh, geez. Okay, you know what? I'm just going to share a picture to show people that are wondering if running a full marathon is fun. There, that was after my first full marathon. And can you guys see it?
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, I joined in 2018. So I was one of those guys that started from 0 to marathon. And I was actually walking past MIT and saw a poster, and I said, oh, this looks interesting. And, something for your bucket list. So foolishly, I signed up for the full marathon. And, I think what Jonathan said initially, which is, I guess a lot of people can do, distance running and stuff, but the amount of pain you feel at the end of it is directly proportional to, the training that you put into it. And, my experience was, and, let's just say mature by the time I started running. And I was totally fine at the end of it. And, one thing I'll say is, it's not just this finishing a half marathon or finishing a full marathon. In my experience, that was kind of the purpose of this exercise. It really actually changed my lifestyle completely. I actually went from being a total non-runner to being a runner. So now I actually run a few times a week and I really enjoy it. And it really does change everything. I'm just warning you guys that once you get into this, it's not like you're just going to be a casual runner once, while you wake up and say, I'll go for a run. You're just going to get hooked. So, at least for some of you, be prepared for it. That's it.
And Vinay, do you want to talk about it?
Yes, thank you, Lakshmi. Thank you, Jumbi. I like Jumbi. I was also a very beginner runner when I joined the program in 2019. I initially joined, like everyone else, very skeptical of my own capabilities. The only time I ran is when a dog is chasing me or someone is chasing me. So I joined the program mainly to see if I can get active. I used to play sports before, but sports requires much bigger coordination and much more investment. Running seemed to be a good lifestyle fit. And I joined in, and I remember still the first time, I think the first run around Charles River, I think about 2 miles, it took me 45 minutes. And I was surprised to see everyone is still waiting for me and helping me do the cool down stretches and exercises. So from then on, I was really hooked. I could rely on everyone's support. And if I had any questions, they are both beginners like me and also seasoned runners. And coach is always there to answer the questions. I was also a little worried about the fundraising aspect as well. Wasn't sure, never done a fundraiser before. But again, that fell into place. It was probably 100 times more easier than what I thought. And any challenges I had, it was I had a lot of experienced fundraisers to reach out to and get help from. And now again, I, like everyone else who did a run before, like I now thoroughly enjoy it, and it's a great stress reliever. I think especially of the last year. This year it will be, I think, even more. I'm looking forward to get back into the program and run as a group, even virtual. I think it'll be much. I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you, Lakshmi.
Yeah, thanks all alumni runners. So I think one question that comes to everyone's mind who is thinking of joining the program is like, would I be able to commit to so much of time out of my busy life? So I think everyone, any one of the alumni runners can chip in, like how much time they had to devote and how they were able to juggle with their busy schedule. So yeah, any of the alumni runners want to, yeah, when I can
jump in. When I joined in 2019, I had we have a daughter, and she is 1 year old. So I was very stressful how I could, with the sleepless nights and juggling with the kid, whether I could find time, and also with the work schedule. But the good thing, I think, with the program allows flexibility, and even if you just the motivation of being in the group helps you kind of achieve your goals in a very gradual, and it's pretty much figuring out when you can and setting aside time for it. But at the peak of it, as the coach was saying, you would spend about 3 hours, so you would know when that is coming, so you could plan ahead. So I would always make sure that I have that time, since we know when we have to put in that time. So, but it's definitely doable. It does take time, and feels like especially in the beginning, it's taking a lot of time, but you can slowly build into your schedule and make it work.
I did also have to travel 1 month, go to India, or then a weekend or two I missed, but so I wouldn't be able to attend in person. I would try and do the run on my own. Now with virtual login sessions, if I'm traveling or anywhere, I can just log in for that warm-up clinic and then run on my own. But it is very flexible because people are busy over the summer with travel and stuff. just
And,
join.
yeah. And the other good thing about the program is everyone of the runner is there on Strava. So when you log into Strava, you see, oh, he ran today 3 miles, so I should go out and run 4 miles. And so it's like a competition that is going on. So that also pushes you in that direction. So that's also a good part of the program. So yeah, so I think we are open to questions now. Like if you have any questions, you can ask us.
No, I can continue. There's just a couple of slides of the presentation. But if you do have questions, feel free to jump in or raise a hand. But yeah, we have just like one last announcement is join our meetup, and that will have where the first run will be next week, Saturday, 10 a.m. And I think, oh yeah, that was the last slide. Because does anyone else have anything they would like to add? Oh, okay. 1 hour meeting. That was very efficient. Yeah, the meetup link, the TeamAIDAsha website.
And no parking.
Yeah.
Didn't have to find parking. I do miss the samosas, but you know, there are trade-offs.
Awesome. All right. Yeah, so all the links are there. Please copy and paste. And if you have any questions later, you can email out to us. Reach out.
Thank you, everybody, for attending.
Yeah, thank you.
Good to see you.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye.